Okay.
Actually, don't mention the session co-conveners. It's not just you and me. Okay, I'll put it
Okay.
here.
Okay. All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone, or good evening for some of you. I'm Nancy Soontiens. I'm a research scientist at Fisheries Oceans Canada. I'm very pleased to be introducing this session on towards the development of Canada's digital twin of the ocean, observations, modeling, forecasting, analyses, and applications. So I hear a bit of an echo. Maybe if we can towards the development of mute. There we go. Thanks, Youyu. I think I was just echoing there. Apologies, everyone. So for the session today, we'll start off with a presentation by Youyu Lu. Every presentation will have 12 minutes with 3 minutes for questions. So I will be giving a 2-minute warning. So after 10 minutes of presentation, I'll let the speaker know that it's time to, it's getting close to the wrap up, and we'll move on to the questions. For everybody, what we've asked is that you introduce yourself in the chat. So please take a moment to share your name and where you're from. And we'll be using the chat to take questions directed towards the speakers. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started with Youyu Lu.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. I share my presentation file. Where my presentation file? Other presentation file. This one. Okay. You can see my file, right, Nancy?
Yeah, we see it. Thank you, Youyu.
Okay, this presentation is about the multi-scale variation of the ocean temperature of the coast of Nova Scotia and their potential relevance to ecosystem and fishery. So my co-authors there, we have a group to work on various aspects of these studies. So its motivation is, as we know, we have observation model provide many physical oceanography data. And here we focus on ocean temperature and its potential aspects. So there are many studies, for example, by my colleague in BIO Bedford Institute, and this is a recent study on the impact of water temperature change on the fishery. I think is groundfish fishery in the Atlantic Ocean. Their finding is a warm anomaly, which is shown in the ECCC July 2012 bottom temperature on the bottom right. Warm anomaly in 2010-11 appear to have negative impacts on some life stage of snow crab. That's their conclusion. So the current work in our group, and we have a different 4 or 5 or more different aspects. So the first one is the rapid drop of ocean temperature in shallow bay during cool air outbreaks, and there is possible link to the fish kill event in the coast of Nova Scotia. So here we have a paper in a local journal called Proceedings of Nova Scotia Institute of Science and Evolution. So the second aspect is about frequency intense cold spells at seabed near Halifax Station 2 near HL2. So where and what are the impacts? So my cases will present in the later part of this session. And the third one is the bottom temperature variation of Nova Scotia during 2008 to 2023 and their relationship with American lobster catching rate. That's a focus on this presentation. And number 4 is about the space-time variation of marine heat wave and cold spells and their possible effects on fish physiology. My colleague Lisa will present on Thursday. And so there's number 5, international variations of coast upwelling and possible impacts on phytoplankton bloom. And Dr. Jing Tao has given this presentation yesterday in the coastal of oceanography inland water. So let's focus on number 3, which will be short one. So the bottom temperature variation on Scotian shelf 2028, 23. So there are previous studies by my colleague Brickman et al. And in 2018, and they look at the mechanism for the 2012, 24, 25 warm events on Scotian shelf using GLORIS and ECCC data. So that's the 2 key figures from their study. And this is time series, the model in blue, and the ECCC data in red. As at July bottom temperature anomalies. And you can see there are quite some consistent internal variation and some trend here. And here is the July, again, from the spatial distribution of the bottom temperature anomalies. So here the left is ECCC data, and the right is GLORIS, and for different years. And we can see there's the general patterns or the magnitude are consistent. So this is encouraging, and for us for the current study. And so we focus on the lobster fishing area 33, and we roughly this part, and we focus on the polygons number 1 to 7. So here is color number by 1, 2, 3, along the coast. Number 4 is including the coast water and the offshore water. And 5, 6, 7, and 5, 6, 7 a bit offshore for Southwest Nova Scotia. So the data, so we take a number 5, polygon number 5 as an example, and the green curve shows the bottom temperature from GLORIS, and it's quite a complete internal variability, and we can see there are some change in the 2012. And the green circles, green dots of the lobster catching rate. And so they're quite complicated. There's certain kind of look like a seasonal signal, and there are also some internal variation. I must see there are different ways to look at the relationship between this data and that data. And so that we need a collaboration with the fishery scientists. And our team is Adam Cook at BIO. So the solution, the results so far we get is we choose the average of November, December, which is the first half of the season for bottom temperature, versus the fishing season, lobster fishing season from November to next year, April. Average lobster called capture per unit effort of this value. So that's it. This lobster catching rate in green, and black is bottom temperature. So for polygons number 1, 2, 3, 4, roughly in the geographic locations. And we can see there's some location like number 4, 5, 6, 7, and have higher correlation, but just about larger than 0.6, and some are reaching like a almost 0.9, 0.8. But there are trends in both data, some station, for example, for number 4, polygon number 4. So there's upward trend in both the bottom temperature and lobster catching rate. So this high correlation may be due to the trend. So how about we detrend and this data? So again, just the same time here, but we detrend a linear trend from both of them. And one location like polygon number 1, and the correlation is getting higher without a trend. And for section polygon number 4 and 5, before have higher correlation, and now we see fairly low correlation. But the correlation, the station polygon number 5 and number 7 are still reasonable high correlation. So there certainly there are differences. So the story is not quite coherent for all the region. So we need to look hard to understand why there are correlation location, there's some another location. So this is ongoing analysis. And so related work is the bottom cold anomaly on Scottish shelf during last year, and the motivation is the fishermen report, and there's an abnormally low bottom temperature and a low lobster catching rate in lobster fishing area 34, which is roughly about this area. And because this area, we know the tidal mixing is important and tidal rectification is important, so we use CIOOS, the Canadian, the concept, coast ice ocean prediction system, East Coast model results, to look at time series. And so there's pseudo analysis for the bottom temperature over this box. We focus on black curve. So in the previous 5 or 6 years, you have kind of regular seasonal cycle in this area. But look at 2023. So when in February, the temperature started to drop and even not recover during the summer. So at least, and the CLPs model results is consistent with the fishermen findings. So we need to understand this process. And so we can also look at, probably look at the spatial distribution of the lobster catching rate and for in 2023. So another work regarding lobster, we found lobster or working with the fishery scientists very interesting. And we also get a report that there's after last year Hurricane Fiona and in 2023 and this year, and the lobster fishermen reported damage, the more damage and more catching, a lower catching rate. And on the right-hand side of the Hurricane Fiona track, and it's more catching a hard catching rate and less damage on the right, left-hand side. So this also interesting study for the future. So the summary from the work of our group is we know model evaluation with observation data is always needed, and so we can define where and we need more better data. And the evaluation tells the model accuracy and a bias, and so we can decide where the when model data can be used to develop application. So there are various physical parameters, and for example, for temperature, we now understand we have multi-space-time variations, and so because they have different space-time scales, we need to link to marine ecosystem fishery. We need to understand, do they affect different aspects of ecosystem fishery? And interdisciplinary collaboration is very important for physical oceanographers to prioritize the work on the analysis and this model analysis and prediction. So the ongoing work, certainly we need to refine the current analysis and expand analysis to other physical parameters and including other predicting models and including the Canadian models, and develop more applications. And we can think about putting into a digital twin framework, in which, for example, and in Bedford Institute, we have a CN bank project ongoing, and we can also think about to apply to other MPAs. So this is my diagram from the last year, the detailed session. And last year we have more abstract presentations, and so we discussed this kind of from the observation and model data, and to the end users, and these are in the blue box. In between, we need to go through the dynamic statistical analysis, including the AI, which I don't understand, but I need to learn, and then develop predictor for ocean variation indicators. So my last slide is printed by Sarah and shoot today, and so within DFO we are developing a long hindcast from 1958 and to the present using this kind of cover this 3 ocean domain. And so far we developed 2 versions, and 1/4 degree, which is 24 kilometers roughly in space, and 8 kilometers 112 degree. And the long hindcast with the 1/4 degree had complete, and we have already see some interesting results. And for example, in the Arctic ice area, and so this red curve is from the hindcast, and the black dashes is from the satellite observation. So there's very encouraging to see the observations and model have consistent with each other. And so if we can, this encourage us to develop the web 12 degree, which is 8 kilometer horizontal resolution. And a lot of work on evaluative application. And so there's certainly need for collaboration. So I'll stop here and go back to my summary slides. So,
Thanks, Youyu. Yeah, thank you very much. So we'll invite everybody to pose a question in the chat. But in the meantime, I'll ask a question. So you showed some, I guess, abnormally cold water temperatures at the bottom on the Scotian Shelf. I was wondering if that was very localized or was it widespread?
For the 2023, so far we found in the beginning of the year is localized along this region and also along the coast. But later year in summer is spread to the whole shelf. So we kind of think the slope water is a cold anomaly. These are large scale spread due to cold anomaly and from the Scotian slope. But in the beginning of the year, we now think it's probably related to the cold air outbreaks. And as in our paper document for 2023 in February. So the both local and like the large scale forcing is that's why Scotian Shelf is quite complicated.
Yeah, I can understand that. And I know that the last while that Scotian Shelf has had a bit of warm temperature. So maybe this is a signal of a change in the coming years of to colder temperatures.
Well, we look forward to that and see how the CLP does that.
Wonderful. Are there any other questions from the group?
Please read. I cannot see the comments here. And
I don't see anything in the chat.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you. I think we can move on to the next speaker. Youyu, thank you very much.
Yes. Great.
Okay, so our next speaker is Michael Casey. So Michael, can you please share your screen?
Sure. Let's see, share screen, presentation, share. And okay, can you see my my slides now?
Yeah, we can see it. Thank you.
And clearly you can hear me, so I shall be on with it. Okay, I'm going to be talking to you today about I can't see my title because my bar is blocking me. How do I get rid of that? Anyway, talking to you today about cold temperature spikes at the T2 location just off Halifax on the Scotian Shelf. I'm just giving you this on behalf of myself and my colleagues at BIO. So I'm talking to you today about this mooring that exists on the Scotian Shelf just off Halifax on the bottom of the ocean and how it interacts with sorry, part of my screen is blocked, which is really annoying. I don't know what's going on there. So the properties, so we're using the Glorious reanalysis product to analyze these events and how it interacts with the Nova Scotia current, and how the Nova Scotia current is interacting at this spot to give us these temperature variations. And it looks like our initial thoughts are that some of these at least are weather-driven events. So the T2 mooring is located just off of Halifax, just beyond 130-meter isobath on the Scotian Shelf. It's at this spot here, and there we have the T2 mooring is indicated there on the Scotian Shelf. And at this location on the surface layers, we have the Nova Scotia current delivering fresh and cold water from the Gulf of St. Lawrence over this location. But at the depths at which the mooring is located, it's actually in the realm of the Scotian slope water that comes onto the Scotian Shelf via this break in the shelf here, connecting it to the off shelf onto the Scotian Shelf. So it's tends to be saltier and warmer water than the surface layer. So there's an interesting interaction there. It's at a depth of about 160 meters on the bottom. It's deployed by DFO and over 23 deployments from 2008 to 2023. And what we find is that there are sharp downward spikes in temperature and salinity at different times. Usually it's fairly warm and salty, but then you see at different times sharp downward spikes in temperature and salinity. So we decided that we'd like to use the GLORIS reanalysis product to try and analyze these spikes to see if we can gain some insight as to what's going on. It hadn't been really investigated too much in the past. So here are 3 different years of that time series, and here we have temperature and then salinity, and then these are the GLORIS reanalysis product vertical profiles at that location, and you can see that at different years you have some different behaviors. For example, here in 2012, it's relatively quiescent during the summer, but in the fall, you get a few downward spikes in temperature and salinity. 2014, you have this massive spike downwards in temperature and salinity, and a couple others in the fall. And in 2017, it's a very active year throughout the whole season, with multiple spikes in the winter and in the spring, and even a little bit of variability in the summer and more in the fall. In these plots, I should have black are observations and red is the model. And so what we tend to find is that these spikes mainly happen in fall to late spring. It's fairly quiescent in the summer, although it's not guaranteed. The spikes can be several degrees, lasting several days, as this one in 2014 shows, on the order of a week. The model often captures this variability. And so in that case, we want to use the model to try and diagnose the event, see what's happening on a larger scale. And one of the important things is the temperature and salinity vary together. So perhaps it's a water mass passing through or something like that. So to start off with, we use a transect from GLORIS made along the AZMP Halifax line along here. And you might be familiar with this line, but this is modeling, I should say. And we use this because the T2 mooring is almost exactly on that line, and it's located above this line here, this point here on this transect that we constructed along there. These are the AZMP stations along the line. And what you note is that it's on the bottom here, and it's in the warm, salty area of water that's fairly it's indicative of the slope water as opposed to the Nova Scotia current water, which is actually lying not that far above it in here, as you can see here. So the Nova Scotia current is in this location here. This is the U and V component of the transect. So blue indicates current towards us, a strong Nova Scotia current. A lighter one is a weaker Nova Scotia current. In February, it's fairly active. In August, it's much quieter there. So a case study. This April 2014 event that I pointed out, you can see that it's a very large spike, and it's captured by both the observations, obviously, otherwise we wouldn't be talking about it, and the model. There's a spike here. And it's about 7 degrees downward spike lasting about 7 days. It's captured by GLORIS, but it's not as deep. So we figured we could use, even so, it's significant enough that we figured we can use GLORIS to investigate it on larger scales. And once again, we're looking at this transect, first of all, out here, O2, just beyond the station 3 of the AZMP line. So we're zooming in a bit on there. So the spring event lasted from about March 29th to about April 6th in 2014. Just prior to the event, you can see the Nova Scotia current is weakly there, blue, and the temperature T2 mooring is located around here. So as we go through the days, March 30th, we start to see the event. We see the Nova Scotia current is intensifying, and the temperature and salinity is starting to cool and freshen. And as we step through March 31st, we see that the current is intensifying, and the cooling and freshening continues. And first and second, that's when it's really at its maximum, a very strong Nova Scotia current. And the temperature and salinity are at a minimum that lasts for about 2 days into the second. But after that, the currents start to weaken, and the temperature and salinity head towards pre-spike conditions. So April 4th, 5th, further weakening, 6th, we've reached approximately pre-event conditions. So this suggests the Nova Scotia current has strengthened and deepened during the event, and that's perhaps responsible for delivering fresher, colder water to the T2 location. And the next question is, what's the horizontal extent of this event? Well, here's some horizontal maps of it, and here we see the Nova Scotia current. It's relatively calm about 2 days before the event. And as we step forward, we see one day before, it's still pretty calm. But on March 30th, you see the Nova Scotia current starting to pick up. And on top of that, you start to see current along this isobath here, and the temperature and salinity starting to fall, as we can see here. And on March 31st, it's strengthening even more. It's at its peak on April 1st to April 2nd, approximately. On top of that, we notice that the coastal current has really picked up all along the Nova Scotia coast. And the temperature and salinity is dropping, and this is all along this isobath as well, that we see strengthening of the current and temperature and salinity minima happening. And so after April 2nd, it starts to weaken, April 3rd, and it's continuing weakening, April 4th, 5th, 6th. It's around April 7th, it's done, as I said before. And so that's very interesting. It's a large-scale coherent response beyond what was just located at the T2 location. And it's in both horizontally and vertically. We're getting a large-scale response. So this suggests that perhaps it's some sort of weather-related event. And so, well, let's look at some weather forecasts or products from that. So we're looking at the ERA5 product from ECMWF reanalysis product, the atmospheric conditions. On the left, we have the sea level pressure and 10-meter winds. On the right, we have the glorious surface currents and temperature. The sea level pressure updates every 2 hours. The glorious only updates every day. At the beginning, we have this low pressure system blasting through a couple of days before the event starts. And as you go on into the 28th and 29th here, I'm going to stop it for a second here. We see a current going, winds going counteracting the Nova Scotia current. The Nova Scotia current is fairly weak. There's a coastal current going opposite the Nova Scotia current while those winds are in effect. And as time goes on, a couple of days later, on when the event starts on around March 30th, you can see the winds have turned around and are now running parallel to the coast and the Nova Scotia current in the same direction. And this current stays that way for quite a while, actually, for several days. There's a bit of a blip here, but what you notice is that there's some sort of complicated weather system going through that's once again has winds parallel to the Nova Scotia current and seems to be encouraging it and setting up this coastal current all along the coast of Nova Scotia and intensifying things.
2 minutes.
Thank you. And so there we go. And as time goes on and the weather patterns change, we have the weather, the current, the wind reduce, and then the currents start to reduce. So there does seem to be a correlation between what's going on here in the wind and in the currents. So it suggests that this could be a weather event. So do the currents match any observations that we should have? The answer is yes. We actually have ECCC measurements from the Ocean Tracking Network at a site that's coincident with the T2 site, the OTN2 ECCC measurement. And it's designed to measure the strength of the Nova Scotia current, which has this along track direction here for the Nova Scotia current at 22 meters depth. And if we look at the along track velocity here component, in the observations here, you can see that the event is picked up quite nicely in observations and in glorious as well. So this suggests that things are really doing, the model is, mimicking what the real life is doing, at least in terms of this event. And this is good. So this suggests that we have at least a handle on this event. So a few general statements. The velocities seem to be most intense at the surface. The weaker variations that you see in the water velocities don't seem to reach the bottom. Some of the stronger ones reach the bottom. The stronger ones reach the bottom to varying degrees. the Nova Scotia current seems to be intensifies and then brings colder, fresher water to the deeper layers. The seasonality of these seem to be similar to the wind seasonality, storms of the area, and there's implications for the Nova Scotia current water mixing with the slope water, and of course there's biological implications for that, which we haven't had a chance to explore yet. But so just to conclude, the intrusions of colder, fresher water seem to be from the intermediate cold layer just above the bottom layer from the T2 mooring. It seems to be temporary strengthening and deepening of the Nova Scotia current based upon the model results and the observations of both the currents. The model analysis indicates the phenomenon is the T2 measurements are indicating a phenomenon on a much larger scale, not limited to the immediate location. What I'm talking about here is preliminary. Some of these events might be atmospheric driven. There might be something else causing the Nova Scotia current to vary and also have smaller effects here and there. We need to build up the statistics, the wind versus Nova Scotia current versus temperature salinity changes relationship and things like that. One thing that's so in general, the summer is most quiescent, fall to spring much more active, coinciding with the storm seasonality. So that's that matches there. And of course, as I've already said, there are implications for mixing, water property changes in mineral basin and surface, e.g. Surface water versus Scotia slope water mixing. And implications for marine life, that remains to be investigated, but this is a good example of, using a data product like GLORIS to try to explain something that's been observed and come to some sort of conclusion on what's going on. Anyway, I'll end it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. So we'll go to the chat to see if there are any questions. We did have a question from Drew.
And
but
answer.
you, oh yeah,
I think
you answered.
Yeah, I think Nancy should one more to the next one because over time.
Okay,
Oh,
all
sorry.
right. So we'll go on to the next.
I had
Thank
trouble
you.
with my slide at the beginning. Sorry about that.
No worries. Okay, let's go on to our next speaker, Kamel. So Kamel, go ahead and share your screen. Mike, you might have to stop sharing.
Oh, sorry. Stop sharing. That good?
Perfect. Thank you.
I'll stop my.
Okay, do you hear me? Do you see my screen?
We see your screen, but it looks like it's your email. So if we pull up the presentation.
It's not a presentation. I'm sharing the presentation.
What we see is your email, and there's a list of like Zoom links.
Nice is from me, and I was share stop, but I'm stop sharing. I don't understand. So can
Oh, that's your share. You're sharing Youyu.
yeah, but I don't know is option stop sharing. Do this will stop other?
Well, I think it's Kamel's screen that's sharing. Thanks, Wendy.
Yeah, we did.
So what about now?
Yeah, I think this is just an accident. It's Kamel. You've got your email, your Outlook showing.
Oof.
Can you share? Start share now, or I? Okay, great.
Okay, there we stop sharing now.
Yeah.
This one.
Great.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. We have your slides now, but you just have to put it into presentation mode. Perfect. All right.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Kamel Chikhar, and I'm going to talk about work we did recently in the context of the SynObs project. So this work has been done by some colleagues like Andrew and Greg from the research, but also Dorina and Braden, the students who worked with us in this project. So the SynObs project is led by Yosuke from the GMA. So SynObs. SynObs, yeah, I put here a link to the SynObs project for more information. So SynObs stands for Synergetic Observing Network for Ocean Prediction. So this project seeks to find some synergies between the ocean observation and ocean prediction through multi-system OSCs. So OSC is Observing System Experiment. So this is procedure where we evaluate the impact of each observation set used in the assimilation. So basically, we add or remove a data set and evaluate the impact on the analysis. So in SynObs, we will test the impact of different observing systems, including the in situ temperature and salinity profiles, including Argo, as well as SST and observation from altimeter. I give here the link for the Argo, the Canadian Argo program. So we used in this project our ocean data assimilation system. It is called GIOPS. So this system is used in ECCC to provide initial condition for multiple forecasting system, such as the GDPS, the 10-day coupled forecast, as well as the ensemble, which provides 16 and 39-day forecast, but also the seasonal forecast from CANCIPS. This system is based on SAM, the System Assimilation Mercator, so the Mercator Ocean International System. It uses a reduced order extended Kamel filter with a 3D VAR bias correction for temperature and salinity profiles. In operation, we produce 2 weekly analyses, so with a 7-day window for the trial and a 1-day for the EIU. For this weekly analysis, we assimilate temperature salinity profiles, including Argo. We assimilate sea level anomaly from altimeters. We assimilate gridded SST that comes from our in-house SST analysis. And also the sea ice is blended during the EIU. For the daily analysis that are used to initialize the forecast, only SST is assimilated. So now the experiment, so the configuration of the experiment, the OSCs, in total we have 10 configuration. The first one is the control, where we assimilate all the observation, but for the Argo, we assimilate only 80%. The no alt, which means no altimetry, we the same as the control, but without altimetry data. The no Argo, we don't assimilate the Argo. The no mooring, same as control, but without mooring. The no SST, same as control, but without SST. No in situ, we assimilate here only SST and altimeters. The SST only, where we assimilate only the SST. The free run, where we don't assimilate any observations. The half Argo, which is identical to the control, but here we assimilate only 40% of Argo. And finally, the operational, where we assimilate all the observation with 100% of Argo. So for each configuration, we produced an assimilation, an analysis cycle for a 3-year from 2020 to 2022. So I'll begin by presenting some results. Here we evaluate the removal of the Argo, so the impact of the Argo. So this is statistics from the innovation for the temperature and salinity profiles. So we have the temperature on the left and the salinity on the right, and different color show the different OSCs we evaluated for this case. And the dotted line is for the mean innovations, while the solid line is for the RMS. So we can make some conclusions from these plots. For example, we can see that the results from the control, the thick red line, and the operational are very similar. A second point we can make is that when we take away the Argo progressively, that is 40% Argo, then no Argo, we can see that we are degrading the system progressively towards the free run, which is in red thin line. Here we have evaluate the SST and the altimetry. So this is the same statistics, but for other OSCs, for only temperature between the surface and 2000 meter, the top plot, and from the surface to 200 meter in the bottom. Here the OSC evaluated is the control, no SST, SST only, no altimetry, no in situ, and the free run. Some conclusion from these plots. First, we can see that the impact of SST is only perceptible in the top 200 meters. This is from the SST only compared to the free run. The impact of altimetry starts to appear below 100 meter and continues through 2000 meters. This is by comparing the control to the no alt OSC. When focusing on the no in situ OSC, that is, we assimilate only altimeter and SST observation, we can see that from the surface to around 75 meter depth, the influence is mainly from SST. Below 100 meter, the influence is from altimetry, and below 500 meters, we have the impact of removing the no in situ or removing the altimeter. The impact is equally important. Another important point is that if we look to the no in situ plot, we can see that the maximum error is around 100 meter, and this shows the importance of assimilating the in situ data to better capture the depth of the mixed layer. Another diagnostics we looked at is the eddy tracking. So more information about this procedure can be found in the paper of Smith and Fortin 2022. So this is the ability to the system for detecting the eddies with respect to their radius. So the plot shows the probability of detection. We have the black line for the control, the green, the free run, the red for the no altimetry, and the blue for the SST only. So from this figure, we can make some points. For example, when we remove the altimetry for the no alt compared to the control, when we remove the altimetry, we degrade significantly the ability for the system to detect the eddies. And another observation is that even without altimetry, the system is able to detect eddies, but for a radius less than 100 kilometers. For small eddies, we can see that even the SST-only system can detect these eddies. Between 80 and 120 kilometers, we can see that the no-alt is slightly better than the SST-only, which means that for this case, the profiles are actively important. Another diagnostics is the current validation. Here, we compare the simulated currents to the observed current from the drifting buoys. We have a paper that describes this procedure. We show here some results from the RMSC for the speed, the magnitude, but also for the two components, the UV, for some OSCs, the control, the SST only, the no alt, and the free. And we can say that by removing the altimeter, we are reducing the ability to predict the current. Another remark is that having only SST, it increases the ability to detect the current direction. This is for the two components, which means that having SST, we can better simulate the shape of the isobar, but not the gradient. The two figures here shows the RMSC difference between the control and the no alt OSC, and we can see clearly that there is degradation in almost all the ocean regions.
One more minute.
Another diagnostics, and the last one, is the shallow water ducts. So here we evaluate the ability of the system to detect the shallow water ducts. That is the minimum in sound speed profile between 10 and 100 meters. And we compared this to the sound speed profiles from the observed profiles. So knowing that these sound speed profiles are dependent on the TS profiles gradients, so it's an indirect evaluation. I give here an indication of the observed frequency of occurrence. The top figure, the bottom is the percentage of missed occurrences in the control OSC. The table shows results from different OSCs. So the control, the no alt, a half argo, and no argo, and the free run. The notes from this table is that the observation are improving the ability to detect south channel when we compare control to free. The profiles, and to less extent the altimeter, provide some information, and the altimeter provides about the same information as halving the argo. So the same, the half argo and the no argo have the same impact. So in summary, the ECCC is participating in Ocean Predict SynObs project to investigate importance of various observing systems to ocean analysis systems. We have completed all the observing system OSC and using our GIOPS system, and the initial results show importance of each of the in situ profile, altimeter, and SST observations. We use novel and independent validation techniques that show importance of observation beyond just testing fits against observation. For example, the eddy tracking and the current verification shows importance of altimeter with secondary importance of SST observations. The ability to detect shallow water ducts and therefore gradients in TS profile shows importance of assimilating profiles with secondary importance of altimeter observation. Okay, so that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kamel. So if there's one question in the chat, Youyu, if you wanted to go ahead and ask it out loud.
Yeah, Kamel, my question is, when data simulation use less observation data, prediction getting worse. So can analysis be applied to tell what aspects of the model, in your case, the GIOPS, do not capture the physics properly?
Well, here we didn't produce forecast per se. So we only produced assimilations. So we did assimilation, we produced analysis.
Sure.
So the main objective of this object is to evaluate each observation set impact in the analysis. There is another aspect in this project where we need to produce forecast for each configuration, and then we evaluate the quality of the forecast depending on each configuration.
Okay, thanks. I think next we should move to the next one, and I invite people to write in comments in the chat. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Kamel. And so Vanessa is our next speaker. So Vanessa, please go ahead and share your screen. And Kamel, you have to stop sharing.
Okay, can you hear me, Nancy?
I can hear you loud and clear, Vanessa.
Okay.
Thanks. You can use your camera too if you're able to.
All right, let me see. I did have a problem last night when I tried to use my camera, but I will try.
Looks great.
Okay. Um, okay, are you seeing? Oh, I have to switch, I think. There we go. So are you seeing my beginning of my slides?
No, don't see, you just see your camera. Don't see your screen sharing yet.
Oh, okay. Share screen. And
It's starting. There we go.
okay, so you can see.
I see. Yeah, now you just have to switch it to presentation mode. Oh, we
There we go.
see. Okay, perfect. Yeah,
All right.
got it. Thanks, Vanessa.
Okay, thank you. So thank you, Nancy, Youyu, and the other organizers of the session for giving us a chance to speak. I think I'm going to switch gears a little bit for most folks. We've been working on the developing of a visualization and application access tool application that enables, I think, a wider swath of users to be able to access the work that you've been doing when we're developing prediction systems or comparing observations and models to get some type of estimate of how well these systems are working. So again, an important part, but I'm switching gears a tiny bit for folks. So my name is Vanessa Sutton-Pande. I'm with DFO Newfoundland region with oceanography section. I've been working on the Ocean Navigator project since about 2015, and there's a lot of people that have contributed to this project over the years. Don't have them all listed here. It's just a start, and hopefully I can kind of speak to them as we go through. Okay, next slide. So first of all, I just wanted to provide a context for how this project came about and how it's being developed. So I think a lot of people here might be interested or familiar with CMOS, which is a collaboration between multi-departments. It's an initiative between, as I said, multiple departments. And the objective is to improve prediction of weather, ice, wave, and ocean conditions throughout sound science and effective collaboration and communication within a client-focused product delivery. And within concepts, there are several working groups, one of them being the prediction systems working group, services working group, which is, I'm currently co-chair of that group, but under that falls a number of projects that really look at trying to increase the availability and usability of ocean data and information for decision makers and the public. And so the Ocean Navigator project, which is the visualization tool that I'll talk about, is kind of falls underneath that umbrella. And so we're trying to develop a software server capacity for providing end users in a way to discover data, to visualize, to access data, and to really be able to pull the intelligence for their work and their mandate out of these systems that we have becoming available to us. So just a quick bit, as I read through the session description, and we talk about research and tools and technology. So I'll just quickly go through the Ocean Navigator application. And so it is a bit of technology and knowledge sharing. It is a small team that we've developed to kind of as an R&D project to develop this tool. It was hosted at a university, it still is. And we've developed it so that there's an application architecture that allows us to be flexible and kind of pivot as users describe their needs. It's publicly accessible. There's no software installation, and we develop it with open source applications to really trying to develop something that we can continue to maintain and sustain without huge investment into types of licenses and applications and things like that. And we focused really on not having a predefined layer. So it's not like a GIS software. It's something where users can go and really define what it is they're looking for and the information they're trying to get at, the area of interest, and whether they're interested in temperature at the bottom or at the surface or anywhere in between, for example. And again, with keeping this development of this tool in mind and the flexibility of it, I'll give you an example how we've most recently worked with, collaborated with the group at IML to deploy an instance of the Navigator on a Linux laptop that they have. So they've actually been able to take our software application, the architecture, containerize it, and run it in a whole different environment, make it available. And so, you know, it just shows the versatility and the ability to collaborate going forward. So what I'm going to show you next is just some examples of what client needs were and the products that we've developed to help them get the information that they need from products. And as you know, we've really focused on Concepts products because this is it was a project that kind of started within Concepts and continues to be. We work really closely with our working group, our end user working group, which is representatives of those departments that we talk about, like within DFO, it's CHS, Coast Guard, CIOOS Service Desk. We're hugely engaged and collaborative with the Navy, so D&D, who has really been there from the get-go, recognizing the use and utility of the system. So I just want to give an example of operational use that we have, that we kind of cater to. So we worked, as I said, we worked with D&D to develop and implement derived acoustic variables. So these are products that we use, GIOPS data set prediction system, and developed derived acoustic variables from that data set. So on the upper right, you have the sound channels. On your upper left, that was sound channels. On your, can you see my pointer, Nancy?
No, we don't see a pointer.
Can you see
there
it?
it is now.
Okay,
Yeah, I see it
sorry,
now. Yeah.
okay. So on the upper right, this is the our sound speed channels. And your lower left is sound speed, sorry. So one of the things that D&D uses this quite often, or probably daily, is to look at sound speed profiles in an area of interest to them. And then lastly, the image on your lower left is just an example of you know, of an ocean eddy that we can represent visually in the application. And following the development and the location of this type of ocean feature is relevant to D&D when they're out at sea doing operations or they're doing their daily briefing. So this application and the products that we've been able to work with D&D to develop are actually used on a daily basis. So this is also a good example of how you want the information you're presenting to be relevant and used, is really to work with end users to define and understand what their needs are. It's important. So this again is just another example of research and kind of verification. Oh, here we go. On the right side of your screen, sorry, I can't get my left and right straight. On the right side of the screen is an example of how we work with Coast Guard, and they were interested in having another look at REOPS output. That they could use to kind of help verify what it is they were looking at within their own suite of tools. So that's the verification part. And so what we did here was just develop the capability to, you know, select a point to have a virtual mooring at that point. So you're seeing here, this is the CMOS East surface currents, I believe, or maybe it's REOPS, I'm not sure. So, you know, we've got water velocity, we've got the magnitude and bearing here represented with quivers. If you select a virtual mooring, you're going to get the water velocity at that point over time, and you're also able to download a CSV. So there's specific products that you're able to pull from each of these layers. And then on the bottom here, I'm talking about research, I guess, this is just one example that came up recently where we had a researcher from the University of Calgary reach out looking for, was trying to access the REOPS data set to look at snow volume estimates in Cambridge Bay because they were doing some work there. And so it was nice to hear from them to know that this is another type of use case for a tool like this to be able to quickly access prediction systems for people's use in the field to get some information. Okay, again, research. So a lot, we do, when we've been developing this application over time, we've really tried to cater to all types of end users. I think what we've gone down the road is really looking at operationals because of our involvement with D&D and somewhat with Coast Guard. But we also, we have scientists that are interested in looking at different types of model outputs and looking at NetCDF files, whether they're familiar or use them often or not. This gives them the ability to kind of take information and just pull it out quickly. And in this case, you're looking at a picture of REOPS and GIOPS data sets side by side, where a user can go in, select an area, and then get the differences between those two data sets, so compare them. I'm getting low on time, so I'm just going to keep talking. So model dissemination. So like one of the things that I think we're talking about with digital oceans and things is, okay, we have models. We have models that we want people to like operational models. We also have groups of people so end users that want easily accessible formats and ingestible to their suite of tools. We also have modelers that want to be able to have an easy and effective way to share their information. And so from this perspective, finding a common format or working with individual modelers to modify their formats and develop ingestion scripts is something that we've also been involved with. So again, I'll start with just describing what you're looking at here. So up in the upper left corner here, this is a proof of concept. We're often involved with proof of concepts and collaborations with people within, I think these examples are people within our department, but we don't, anyway, this is some examples of proof of concept. So this one is the Gulf of St. Lawrence model. It's a climate projection model that has temperature and salinity, and I believe water velocity. And for this data set, there's one set of files for each year from 1970 to 2099. So this is not available on the Navigator, the public site, but these are like proof of concepts that we have on staging sites. Again, another proof of concept. So this is the Port of Vancouver. And we're working with CIOOS to develop scripts to be able to ingest the models. And it was helpful for them as another tool to verify the model on different platforms. So they had their own way of viewing things, but then they would use the Navigator to actually, provide another kind of platform for verification. And this down in the lower right corner, of course, is SynObs, and that's again a suite of products from concepts that we have. We host. And then lastly, this is a demonstration on the lower left that of interest and need in the future to look at things, hosting things like this in particular is an example of climate vulnerability layer. So it's just an example of how to, there's a lot of information out there that people really want to be able to disseminate and get out to end users in a easy and efficient way.
One more minute, Vanessa.
Okay. So the other thing that we have focused on is model verification. And so I don't need to tell anybody here how important that is. So I'll just show you examples of how we do this. So we're building a database of observations. So, and we're currently kind of trying to decide, what observations to pull in there. So I'm interested in having conversations with folks if you want to contact me. But we pull in observations, Argos and drifters and gliders and so on. And our plan is to be able to sync those with model, the observation and model timestamp, so that you'll be able to do that in real time if you have a data set and you want to compare it to the model. And we also bring in class 4 data. So class 4 data are created when the forecast and analysis fields are interpreted to in situ ocean observations at particular locations. So we have 2 types of class 4 data that we bring into the Navigator. I'm going to skip some of these. So I guess I'll just talk about collaboration. So we've collaborations and engagement, past, present, and future. We have engaged with a large group of people over the years. I don't think we wouldn't be here today if we were some of the collaborations we have under concepts, especially D&D. Over the last 9 years, we've worked really closely with them and other colleagues to develop this application. But we've also, there's also so many working groups that we're a part of. We're also trying to be relevant and come to conferences like CMOS, ORCA to get out there and understand what people need, and that this is an application that's available. In the future, I want to continue the collaborations that we've been doing and add to them. I think I mentioned CIOOS as well. I know that we were involved in the model task team, which is for I think is starting again, and also look at future links with groups such as CIOOS that have observation databases that we could link it to. And kind of look at those collaborations and existing resources that, and tools that are out there. So I think that's really important. And I think I'll ongoing future work. I mean, again, collaborations. We want to keep adding models and observations as they become available. I heard about the Hindcast products. That's interesting to us. Biogeochemical models are very important to clients and to our users. And so I know that's something we would like to look into further and host some of those biogeochemical models. And just to continue our ongoing engagement with end user groups with D&D MILOC Ocean Navigator user group and our Ocean Navigator end user group as well to hear what people what our clients need. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Vanessa, for the presentation, and that really aligns nicely with this session, which is all about digital twins of the ocean and sharing and disseminating data. I'll invite anybody to get pose some questions in the chat, but I do have a quick question. What would you say is the biggest challenge when developing an application like this?
I don't know what the biggest challenge would be. I can tell you a challenge, I guess. In our experience over the last 9 years, really developing applications are data compatibility and housing data. It's so the capacity to house data and to host it, and then be able to kind of each time you take a new data set in is to gear to that format and that process or that standard. So it's a bit of work every time you kind of bring something in. One of the things we want to look at is kind of going out and we do it already where we access data through an NerdApp server. So that's something going forward that is kind of something that we'd like to look at in terms of always bringing data in and hosting it, because it's expensive and it gets quite capacity is difficult.
Just I smiled because you kind of answered another question that was posted in the chat.
I can't see the chat.
Okay, I'll read it out. So it's from Jody Climack, and it's says that GUI navigators are useful, and for analysis is the underlying concepts data available on open thread servers or the like?
Not currently. We have had that functionality, and it may be something we can bring back in. It may be something that we can bring back in the future. It's basically it's resources and time. So that I guess that's the other thing, Nancy, is the challenge is sometimes when a user thinks it seems like a trivial change or an application or request. Sometimes as you build these systems, it's not as simplistic as it may seem to the front end. But yeah, I'd encourage. I'm sorry, I didn't catch the name. Whoever reached out about that question to reach out to me directly.
Yeah, sure. And if you do manage to get to the chat, I think there's you can provide some comments in the chat window. That you have to go to Event Mobi though to get to the chat. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thanks again, Vanessa. So we'll move on to our next speaker. We've got Jonathan up next. So Jonathan,
All right. 1 second.
awesome. Yeah, we see you got the screen sharing. We can hear you.
All right.
Perfect.
Okay, let me make that small. All right. Thank you very much for having me today. That actually dovetails quite nicely with Vanessa's talk, because now I'm going to talk about CIOOS and how do you access data and where does it come from and things like that. So CIOOS, for those of you who don't know, is the Canadian Integrated Ocean Observing System. We are Canada's contribution to the Global Ocean Observing System, which is recently been in the ocean news as these Vision 2030 papers have come out, really laying a foundation of where the globe needs to go in the next over the ocean decade and before 2030 in order to accomplish those goals. And how do we get towards that digital twin that we're all hoping for and talking about? If you haven't had a chance to read these papers, they just came out in April. And there's a short version in that I'll link to later in the talk. But functionally, what everybody wants is more ocean data, and then easier to access ocean data so that you can then suck in that ocean data into your modeling systems. So that's where CIOOS fits in the global ocean data sharing and data management space, because eventually it all has to get to the end users, as we all know. But those data need to be findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable or fair. That's really important for making it easy for models to ingest data, as well as easy to reuse those data down the way if they don't have to be transformed. And if they're on an ERDAP server, it just makes life so much simpler. But not all data are necessarily fair, because it's important to care about your data, especially Indigenous data, who the Indigenous individuals or the even perhaps organizations may have some ethical questions as to whether or not those data should be fair, but at least maybe they can be findable if they're not fully fair. So a brief history of CIOOS for those of you who are hearing about it for the first time. Started in 2018, went live in March of 2020. We have a strategic plan, and importantly, since last year, CIOOS was recognized as the GIOPS Regional Association for Canada last June. And looking forward, we're doing a little bit of restructuring and continuing to integrate data along the way. We're far from the only ocean observing system in the world, but we have close ties to our partners around the world. And we are a national collaboration funded by Fisheries and Oceans Canada and MEOPAR and the Tula Foundation until recently. But we're continuing forward with our regional associations across the country with lots of partners from west to east. We are a global collaboration as well, reaching out to partners across different disciplines and across different regions, and our contribution to the United Nations Decade for Ocean Science and Sustainable Development. With a little bit of luck, we're starting to earn our vision as Canada's nucleus for ocean observing. We're trying to make connections for a sustainable ocean future. And how are we doing? Well, we're up almost 800 data sets since I last presented to you in St. John's. What that means is a little bit sketchy. So let me put it another way. We've added about 2 terabytes of data that we can access through CIOOS in the last year, bringing the total up to about 15 terabytes of information, dating back to 1914, I think, is our oldest observation. We've got over 100 different partner organizations, 24 different data applications, including 2 new ones since last year. And we're in alignment with the Global Ocean Observing System, integrating biological and model data as well. Some of those new data that are of interest, perhaps, to this community include fisheries and oceans data from the East Coast. We have greatly expanded our AZMP and AZOMP offerings from Newfoundland and Montjoli in, is that right? Could be wrong. Anyway, the one, the DFO office in Rimouski. We've pulled in their oceanographic data management system. We're now also offering data coming off of gliders from Sea Otter based out of Dalhousie, as well as glider data from Memorial University. If you want glider data coming off of the West Coast, it's my understanding, and Jody, please correct me if I'm wrong, that those data are available in US CIOOS, and I don't know the current status of making those available through CIOOS. So ask Jody. And a fun little thing is we actually have some French data coming in through CIOOS. There is a buoy that is at just offshore of Saint Pierre and Miquelon. My French is not great, but that buoy is coming in through CIOOS and can be accessed. So it's international collaboration coming through. So getting data out. If you haven't been to CIOOS before, we've got 3 different exploration tools. Our Data Explorer tends to be our key tool that we think a lot of people will enjoy because it allows users to search across data sets, define a geographic boundary, and then filter within that geographic boundary for the temporal or variable information, or even the data set that they might be interested in, to get just the data that they want without having to necessarily download entire data sets. It's a really important tool for certain data sets, such as data coming from Institute of Ocean Sciences, where many of their data come like under one data set, and it spans both the Pacific, Atlantic, and Arctic Ocean. So getting the whole data set might not be what you need when all you really want is your geographic area of interest. So please use the Data Explorer to do that. If, however, and one other way to get at data within CIOOS geographically is the catalog map. Again, this is accessing whole data sets, and then the data catalog itself allows you to access those whole data sets using keyword functions that the Data Explorer is not as good for. So to get data into CIOOS, we're continuing to streamline that process. But functionally, you chat with an engagement specialist who will then work with you and a data specialist to meet your needs and make sure that the data and all the metadata are complete and in the right formats in order to be hosted either on CIOOS servers or in a preferred world on your own server and your own ERDAP. We can help you spin up your ERDAP in order to make it possible for CIOOS to harvest information off your ERDAP server. But then you retain control of the data and any revisions that are necessary. And this process continues until everybody's happy and satisfied and can move forward. Like I said, we're accepting all essential ocean variables in alignment with GIOOS, and to make sure that we have all of the information necessary for the data to be findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable, we have that metadata entry tool. Which makes not only make sure that the metadata are complete, but it also assists in the translation of those metadata. CIOOS is a fully bilingual system, so not everybody is fully bilingual, so we have some assistance along the way. We're also developing new data management tools for validation to make it easier to spot where there may be some quality control issues in the data. This is coming down the pipeline. We're testing it out now, but keep an eye out for it in the not too distant future. Translating from data to information. We're excited about Ocean Connect out on the West Coast. Ocean Connect is really geared towards the recreational user. It pulls in model data from the Environment Climate Change Canada version of Susan Allen's model at CCAS, as well as the CMOS products and for the rest of the West Coast. But it really gives boaters and mariners the ability to look at tides, currents, waves, winds, air temperature, water temperature, and something else that I'm skipping off my brain, but buoys and webcams and weather stations as well. So you can get those model information, buoys and webcams, and for real-time information up to three-day forecast for the model data, so that users can plan their day on the water and really have a good time. We're hearing some good feedback from everything from cargo pilots to sailors and sea kayakers and stuff like that about how they're planning on using it this summer. So oceanconnect.ca if you haven't had a chance. SLGO out east just got their marine conditions application refunded. This has been a tool that has been used by pilots on the St. Lawrence for the better part of, I think, 10 years now, but it hasn't had a lot of love in the last couple of years. And so they just got new funding to completely revamp this system and bring it up to snuff for today's conditions and all the feedback that they've heard along the way. So that's at slgo.ca/conditions. And there is a hurricane dashboard coming soon, hopefully by September. Really planning for September in order to make sure that we hit the season. The back end is finished. We're just putting some finishing touches on the front end. But a way for people to understand what's going on offshore as those hurricanes are approaching Newfoundland and Nova Scotia and everywhere else in the Maritimes.
Two more minutes, Jonathan.
Thanks. I'm on time. What's next? We have ambitions of creating a national coordination center, which will improve coordination with US CIOOS as well as our partners that are nationwide across Canada. We would really like to make it easier for people to have border-free data discovery, because why should you have to go to US CIOOS for Canadian data? And wouldn't it be nice if we just had the ability to find all the data wherever we needed it and whatever website we went into. MEOPAR's communities of practice are spinning back up as MEOPAR is. We're continuing to expand our regional partnerships and making sure that CIOOS is ready for artificial intelligence. I was reading a report that said that AI is where this field of digital twins is probably headed, probably in the next 5 to 10 years, was what one of these Vision 2030 papers said. So really needing to make sure that we have the ocean observing systems ready for that plan so that we can actually make those digital twins a reality. We're really trying to be here for you. We're continuing to get more data from more sources and make it easier to get data into and out of CIOOS. But your feedback really makes it easier for us. And as a community, I think we need to continue to build the case for ocean observing systems and make it possible for ocean observing systems to really be an industry a little bit unto themselves. They're important. Everybody in the ocean community realizes they're important. And at the same time, they're underfunded globally. And so if we can raise speak loudly to our policymakers as to why ocean observing systems need to exist and how they help from ocean observations all the way down the value chain to end users, then I think we'll all be in a better position at the end of the ocean decade. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much, Jonathan, for the very interesting presentation. I'm just going to survey the chat quickly to see if we have any questions posted.
Bunch of questions from Youyu.
Yeah, there's a bunch from Youyu, but I
It's
think
not a question, it's more like for the last part. I think.
Yep, no worries. I'm just
for now,
trying.
let's focus on any
catching up.
comment from Jonathan.
I guess I could ask Jonathan, so what's next for CIOOS? And and I'm gonna ask from my perspective as an ocean modeler, like is the ocean model data being integrated into the CIOOS platforms?
So ocean model data, specifically with respect to ocean models, CIOOS is happy and eager to continue to work with the MEOPAR communities of practice in order to figure out what are the next steps and what the modeling community really would like to see. So there was the model data task team in existence for a while, but as MEOPAR lost funding and has gone into hiatus for a little bit, some of that effort lost steam. I think I've heard from the Predicted Ocean Working Group that there is some interest in getting model data and model metadata specifically into CIOOS. Model data flowing through CIOOS is still a bit of a challenge because of firewalls and other issues. And so making those, getting that model data out continues to be a bit of a thorny issue. CIOOS is not designed to be a storage facility for models, and it doesn't have the capacity or the funding to do so. Although that would be nice if that were something that could be broached in a future date. But for the time being, to get model product, you still have to go to the model itself.
Okay.
But if the Meow-Park Community Practice wants to address that, we're happy to talk.
Okay. Thank you, Jonathan. So that's about time for this talk. There is a comment in the event Moby chat for you there if you want to address the comment. So now we're moving on to we're intending to have a bit of a discussion on different aspects of the digital twins of the ocean. We only have about 10 minutes left in the session. And UUIC has posted a few questions or comments in the chat. I know that it's not going to be entirely effective for everybody to contribute to the discussion, but for our speakers who have access to the Zoom, if you have any questions, comments, points to bring up, please feel free to activate your microphone and camera to add your comments. For everybody else, unfortunately, we'll have to rely on the chat window.
Yeah.
So
Nancy, can you hear me, right?
I can hear you, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's kind of unfortunate because in previous year when we have a discussion and it's quite effective, and of course, mostly like last year, like a half, people mostly on site and also online. But this year we are not allowed to turn on the audio for the participants, so we'll be less effective. So I put the question here on this slide and also in the chat. So we can, it's a lot, I think we have a lot to discuss, for the, at least I read here, comments, question on presentation of this session, re-updates, share information about meeting activity project international within Canada, status of Canadian observation, modeling, prediction, those stuff, and where do well, where we need improvement. And number 4, state of Canadian applications. So we should, we know there's many good stories to already develop. So can we, have more to get to know these success stories so we can share, we can promote, and also learn from them. And number 5, and how in Canada, how we can enhance the DTO related knowledge and technology exchange, coordination and collaboration, and how we can benefit from international community, for example, the framework and an open standard for the DTO, and also next step, what or how can enhance the development of Canadian DTO. So I think the time will be not, unfortunately, we cannot turn on our audio and for people to give comments. So we're relying on the, we'll rely on your comment. You can write your comments or maybe after meeting because time is very, very short. So I think there's many, I can think about many good points, even follow Jonathan and Vanessa's presentation. And I think, CIOOS is very important. And also, I would see the Ocean Navigator, this kind of software development is very important for linking to the research forecasting to end users. So yeah, and so if how many minutes we have now, Nancy? And so if
we have about 5 minutes left,
okay. It's
yeah.
not very ideal for this discussion. We foresee that, but we are very much appreciate and you're writing us email or comments because we do want to produce some report and presenting some management and also share with if I look at the first page and you can see, our convener for this session, we have people from DFO and Dalhousie, Max Smith from Dalhousie, promote top key and from the private sector. Norman Boone from the Halifax, from Tula Foundation, and also Fraser Division from ECCC. So we try to see, we're commute to improve the communication nationally. It's not just within one organization, and so we try to, to gather information and maybe, to try to help, or we can, to engage in collaboration. So, yeah, and any quick comment from Dee and Patricia and Nancy, our panelists, also the speaker, because they can turn on their audio on to speak.
I'll quickly add something, Youyu. I think one thing that I've observed at the CMOS and in this session is the more accessible our data is, like our model data, our observational data, the more that can be done with it. And maybe that sounds a bit obvious, but it really is true. Like we've seen a lot of really neat presentations on model systems that are developed in Europe, and we're doing pretty good science with those systems. So I think that it's really important for Canada to think about how do we make our model data, our observational data available to others so that we maximize the utility and the value of that data.
Very nice comments on Nancy. Anything from Dee and Patricia? And by the way, I think Dee is a member of a scientific committee of the DITTO, the International Digital Twin of the Ocean program. So she will be good communication for what from international to us. Dee, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I just want to add that a lot of other countries are having a lot more progress in digital twins of the ocean, and I hope for Canada we are increasing our capability in collaborating on this topic as well. So thank you to Jonathan very much. I think the CIOOS is a great step for us to put everything together, for us to access all the observational data and then maybe hopefully very soon the model data together as well. Patricia, would you like to speak about the RMS or the modeling effort in general?
I mean, can everyone hear me? I wasn't sure.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. I mean, I'm not sure. I know with RMAS, which is sorry to everyone who's on the line, it's a subcommittee in DFO that brings together modelers from across the regions within DFO. And one of the things we're working towards is trying to figure out how we can support more of these digital twin activities within the government and within Canada. So I think Nancy brought up a good point, or maybe it was Youyu, that collaboration within the government and outside of the government too, with academia and other organizations is really important to advance DTOs. And when Nancy was talking about data, I'm just going to say one more thing before I guess we're done. I think Vanessa spoke on this point too, and she was saying, it seems really easy to people who want to put up data sets or grab data sets, but there's all this complicated stuff that happens. It takes a lot of time and effort. And it's like this unsexy stuff that we really need to focus on too, in order to do the work of collaborating with everybody else and getting that data out.
Okay, thank you, Patricia. And for the last minute, I just I would mention, there's a CMOS session. This special session is not a single thing for the Canadian DTO development. And so I think there during the year and like last year we have the webinar and led by Tula and linked to the international DTO component. And still I think work with the university, with the private sector, with NGO, there will be I think we can arrange, we can plan some more activities in this year and next, and so really want to see how we can work together. So I think on behalf of all the co-conveners and co-chairs, appreciate everybody's participation for this this session. I know some interesting, useful comments already coming in, and I look forward to more comments and suggestions, ideas, and through this chat or through email. And so I think we're time is up, right? So yeah, okay. And so we'll thank everybody, and goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.